Friends and enemies, welcome to yet another edition of the mighty Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, the CBP, all part of the CBP Media Network. And I'm Len the Legend, of course. Joey has the evening off, still dealing with fatherhood. So good for him. He's learning and going through the process of becoming a first-time parent. So good for him. But we are going to be chatting, or I'm going to be chatting, with a couple of very based Canadians. We have Nathan and Pablo coming on, and there's a lot we want to talk about. But before we do, I have to check off these things off my checklist thing. So number one, we have sponsors. Well, actually, it's the only thing I do. Is 3 different sponsors. Number one, we have EasyDNS. And EasyDNS, what can we say about them? Mark and the team over there have been absolutely wonderful to us. And if you sign up and be a customer there, you will be very well respected and very well treated by them. So what do? They offer you, well, if you have domain name renewals, or if you sign up for a domain name, they could do that. If you want to start web hosting, they could do that. If you want to do email hosting, you could do that. So if you want to set up your own website, or you have a website set up and you want to transfer it over to a better company, and I'm going to say they are the better company out there, they'll be happy to do it. Same thing with email hosting. If you already have email hosting set up with somebody else and you want to move it over to somebody that is more private and less likely to rug pull you, EasyDNS is be willing to have you come on board their team. Lots of different options you could do over there. You could do like a NOS relay. You could even do, like, if you wanted to, a Bitcoin node with them. Check them out. If you use our promo code CBP Media, 50% will be taken off your initial purchase. What does that mean? Make your first purchase very big, because you're going to maximize your savings. So sign up for 10 different domain names, or maybe set 5 different email address, or 5 different websites, so many different things. To be honest, if you are in business and you want to operate in today's world, you have to have a website. We have one, CanadianBitcoiners.com, and it was all thanks to EasyDNS. Check them out, and they even accept Bitcoin. So how could you go wrong? Number 2, Bull Bitcoin. My block clock behind me shows the price of Bitcoin as 101K USD. It could be a good price to sell, could be a good price to buy. Either way, Bull Bitcoin has you covered. You could do it with on-chain, which I suggest people tend to do, especially now. The last block was 12 sats per VByte, so really still use the on-chain. But if you want to do Lightning, you could do that as well. Check them out. If you want to also do other things with your Bitcoin rather than simply buy or sell, you could do that. You could use their bill service to pay your bills. Like if you have to pay, say, a cell phone bill or whatever, you could use that. Use your Bitcoin to start paying your bills. Why the heck not? The price of Bitcoin is so high, so you can actually utilize it as a medium of exchange. Second thing, another medium of exchange offering they provide you could buy gift cards with your Bitcoin, and you can start spending those gift cards in the real world. So it's like you're living on a Bitcoin standard, so to speak. I know a lot of merchants don't take Bitcoin directly, but indirectly they can, thanks to Bull Bitcoin. They're a non-custodial exchange. This is what you want. You want nobody to hold on to your keys. Your coin is yours. Once you buy, they send it to you directly. If you open up an account using our promo code below $21, will be added to your account once you provide the necessary information and fund your account as well. Last sponsor, we have Decentral Tech. And if you're in Canada and you want to do any type of home mining solutions, Bitcoin mining solutions, they're the people to talk to, because they have from the very, I'll say, efficient, like the BitAxe. Here's one, for instance. Can't even hear it. This guy's just running away, just doing his thing. It's a CBP branded BitAxe. And if you want to get maybe something more powerful, like an S21, you could do that. They got all the whole gambit you could run over there. So a lot of different options. Now it's very popular to start heating your home with Bitcoin miners. They have a lot of solutions for that. You can check it out. Also, if you don't want to heat your home, maybe you just want to get a maybe S19 that you could plug into a standard 110 outlet. You can get that as well. They could set it up for you, give it to you, and away you go. A lot of different options. Check them out. Decentral Technologies. They're based in Canada, based out of Montreal. They are the best in the game, especially if you want to get something quick, easy, set up, and they'll help you through the process. They know this game. In fact, I just talked to somebody just a moment ago that got a tour of their building, and we'll be actually hopefully talking about that in a bit. But either way, check them out, Decentral Technologies. So with that, it's time to bring on the gentlemen to their show. We got Nathan and Pablo. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Len. Good to see you again. Pablo, good to see you too, pal.
What's up, fellas? Nice to be here.
Love it, gents. Before we go any further, I just wanted to maybe introduce you both to our audience. You give a little bit of background of who you are, what you do. So I'm going to throw the baton over to you, Nathan. You go first and let you go, because the floor is all yours, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Len. So yeah, I'm Nathan. I'm one of the mentors at Bitcoin Mentor, and we're just focusing on, onboarding the next wave of Bitcoiners. We're doing the education, consulting, a little bit of technical support, and I've been with them since first launch at the halving, and it's been a fantastic journey so far. Additionally, I'm starting to do a little work behind the scenes with Ben and BTC sessions, and hopefully have some more things coming out there in the near future.
Pablo, over to you, buddy.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm Pablo. I work for the Mighty Bull Bitcoin. I'm the Bitcoin evangelist, working in everything to do with education, onboarding, orange pilling, spreading the good gospel of Bitcoin. And yeah, very happy to be here. First time on the podcast, but a long time listener of CBP. So yeah, it's nice to be with you folks.
It's good to have you both on. The Bitcoin Mentor Program, I just want to touch on that really quick because that's something that has been started up not too long ago. BTC Sessions was the guy behind it. I want to hear a little bit more about that because there's people out there that want to get on board into Bitcoin. They just don't know the process. They need a helping hand. I know you guys are able to do that. So I want you just to give us a rundown what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, the company was founded by Mike Cook and then Ben, Mr. BTC Sessions pair in there. We launched at the halving of this year, which was fantastic. And there was some building going on behind the scenes beforehand. But essentially what the company is Mike himself was looking for a particular type of service and he couldn't find what he wanted kind of on the market for that Bitcoin education, technical support, kind of consulting. And then Ben on his own was already doing it, but Ben was getting slammed. Like his calendar was constantly booked, people needing to sit down, get a little extra help, have them walk them through the steps. And so ultimately what Bitcoin Mentor is trying to scale out Ben. It's taking the best we can find in Bitcoin education and then making them available to people who might need that resource. And so I know it started off with something like 350 plus applicants, and they whittled down the team to about 15 of us. And everybody is a Bitcoin only maxi that really is just here for adoption. And so, as we're, prices running up and we're getting a little more attention to these things too, trapped in the fiat matrix, there's a lot of people that know where they want to go. Surprisingly, like there's such a huge amount of Bitcoin resources, podcast education out there that they already know where they want to go on their journey, but they have no idea where to start or how to get going. And the biggest thing too is just the time constraints, right? The idea is that a lot of these are professionals or business owners, and it's not that they can't go through the material, and we're happy to point anybody to the resources. There is a plethora of free stuff out there that can help you get set up properly, but they just need someone to speed run them through so they can start taking custody of their own coins as soon as possible. And that's essentially where we come in.
Pablo, for Bull Bitcoin, what's the process for somebody that if they come to you and they want to get onboarded somehow? Say they're new to the game, but they heard about Bitcoin and they just want to somehow, buy Bitcoin and do it on a seamless way. Like, what would you suggest? What does Bull Bitcoin offer in terms of services?
Well, that was kind of like that was one of our kind of struggles actually, because being a self-custodial Bitcoin exchange, like the initial thing when you buy Bitcoin through Bull Bitcoin is you fund your account and you're ready to pull the trigger, and the first thing we ask you for is a Bitcoin address, right? So for any noobs who are just kind of joining the platform, they need to work out, okay, so what wallet do I use? That's like primordial. Before you own any Bitcoin, we're not going to hold it for you, so we're going to send it somewhere. So previously, what we do is we do everything we can to kind of reach out. We had a lot of different support sites. We had bitcoinsupport.com, which gave like different hot and cold solutions. And we'd reach out as well. We've got like a hardcore dedicated customer service team. We're a small business, but super agile. So we'd reach out, we'd phone call, we'd do Zooms, we'd do whatever it was to kind of get people off zero. And that was like a super kind of personal, kind of one-on-one based interaction. And I loved it. I was doing a lot of calls, helping people through the process, troubleshooting, and just talking through the different options of how people can hold Bitcoin and hold it safely and securely. Right. But the kind of pain point was that, like we're an exchange principally, so we focus on the buy and sell and paying bills. So to onboard newbies every single time an account was created was something that we simply didn't have the bandwidth to do. So I was super happy. In fact, I stalked these guys at first when I saw this project called Bitcoin Mentor and BTC Sessions. Ben's face stuck on it. I was like, hey, what's that? So I'm not sure if you know this, Nate, but I kind of stalked you via the newsletter at first, right? Yeah, you heard this one? So
no, I didn't. Yeah, I'm curious to hear. No.
Oh, yeah. I was like, hey, what's this? Because I was doing basically Bitcoin support for Bull Bitcoin, and it was kind of like my main hustle at Bull Bitcoin was just onboarding people. So I was like, what's this new show in town? Let's check these guys out. And I saw they had a newsletter. They were like, business coming soon. Sign up to the newsletter, get the updates. So I signed up to the updates, basically using like a burner email address. I was like, I'm not going to use like my @bullbitcoin address, right? And I didn't know what the operation was. But then as soon as I got my first newsletter on this burner address, I was like, hey, I want to know more. So I hit reply. And I was like, yo, Mike, what's up? Like, just want to find out what exactly is the business. What are you planning to do? Like, how can you help Bitcoiners in Canada? Blah, blah, blah. But when I hit reply, it actually replied from my @bullbitcoin address. So I doxed myself from like day one. And then I had to follow up the email immediately back being like, yo, Mike, as you can tell, it's Pablo from Bull. I'm super interested. We want to work together. What's up? And then we just caught onto a call straight there and then on that same day. And ever since I met Mike and I met the team, I was like, yeah, let's make something happen. So it was at the Bitcoin Rodeo when we were out in Calgary that we were, I had the privilege of sharing the stage with Ben to announce that we were going to partner with Bitcoin Mentor. So it's like a dynamic duo. We just pass the puck back and forth. If someone needs Bitcoin, buy or sell, they pass the puck to us. If somebody needs a wallet set up or any type of custody solution or nodes or whatever, we send the puck back, and it's like a real key partnership. So I was super happy to have doxed myself because it just got the project off the ground super quick.
Well, to dox yourself, that's a pretty big thing. Because I would imagine, you hold that information near and dear to your heart. So
yeah. As soon as you see that email coming in, you're like, oh, okay, competition coming in. But no, it was like a really good partnership. So, we work very closely with Bitcoin Mentor. We have like weekly calls. We like refer clients back and forth. We make sure everybody's been taken care of, and it's winning because that's what it's about. It's about holding your Bitcoin, not just buying it, but holding it. So we complete that picture pretty well.
The website's bitcoinmentor.io. Is that correct?
That's correct, Len. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure anybody out there that wants to know a little bit more about this, you could just simply go to that website, and there's a wealth of information there. Now, I'm going to throw it out there. Right? Whoever wants to answer this first, go right ahead. Newbie, just has no knowledge of Bitcoin and wants to get exposure to and own it. What wallet do you guys suggest they get?
Well, I'll start off, and then I'm curious, Pablo. So I've got a few that I like and recommend, but really I am trying to get people to hardware as quick as I can, get it into cold storage. And realistically, like, we are a paid service. I'm happy to refer. The bitcoinsupport.com has all the DIY guides for getting Blue Wallet, getting going on something mobile. And those are fantastic. But if you're coming to us to get some one-on-one training and education, you're probably buying enough that we already want to move it into a cold storage device. And so for me, the software side of things, I really like Nunchuck on mobile, and I really like Sparrow on desktop. Those are kind of the golden go-tos because they give you full control over the coins. They're really not obfuscating what's going on in the background. And even from an educational standpoint, if you don't understand everything that Sparrow is showing you right out the start, that doesn't mean you can't use it, but it gives you something to explore and a way to kind of better your understanding as you become more familiar with everything. And then from there, looking specifically at the hardware, I'm always, my kind of requirements for recommendation is it's got to be open source, secure element, reputable company, air gapped, and Bitcoin only. And as long as it fits that criteria, I'm fine recommending it to friends, family, clients, customers, the work. So right now, most of it, a lot of people were going right to Cold Card. Like the Cold Card Q is fantastic. It's been my daily driver, the one that I like the most. Additionally, the Passport from Foundation Devices, Jade from Blockstream is great too. If they're a little bit cost sensitive, I might direct them to a tap signer, but that's usually about where we're ending up. Like, I like the Treasure Bitcoin only devices, but it just doesn't meet that air gapped requirement and stuff as well too. So no, not terrible. It might make a good one for a multi-vendor, multi-sig, a 3 of 5 kind of setup, but generally that's where I'm heading. Pablo, I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, usually when I have conversations, I try and gauge without asking directly, like how much they want to first experiment with. Have they got like a couple of thousand they just want to invest and see it sit there for a while? Or is it like, we're at a bar, we're at a restaurant, it's friends, we take a coffee and we're at the house and it's a small amount. So if it's like a large amount, then I'd probably go for something like, like a Sparrow on desktop is great. Like I show up to people's houses, I'll meet people at meetups. And even if it's Sparrow just as a hot wallet, I find it's like Sparrow's like, it enables people to grow super well into Bitcoin and self-custody. So even if they're just using it for the hot features, there's, it's packed with everything they'll need, like gap limits, like UTXO management. So they'll never have to change platform later on. If they get familiar with Sparrow from day one, then they can plug hardware wallets into it later and they'll be familiar with how to move stuff. So like an initial large purchase, if it's not hugely large, I'd go like Sparrow hot.
Yeah.
And then, it's going to take a little bit of time to ship out a cold card or something. We were just talking about that with the Canada Post strikes and everything. So by the time they get that hardware device, they can just move from the hot to the cold within Sparrow. And it's like, oh, yeah, I got this. Okay. So you kind of build up it's like scaffolding, really. You're like building up the structure and supporting them along the way. And eventually it stands on its own. So that's like for medium to large amounts, but like small amounts, if it's just on the fly outside of the house, I recommend the Bull Bitcoin app. The Bull Bitcoin wallet. It's because basically it's got on-chain and liquid. So if you want that wow factor, you can just zap somebody across some liquid and they can receive it real quick. And then they ask, hey, what's the difference? And you can delve into like different layer solutions. And you can get them to write down their 24 words as well, straight off the app. So they get familiar with how to back up and recover seed phrases. So that's a really good one if you're out of the house, like on a quick 20-minute orange pill session with somebody you just met. Yeah.
Agreed. And even quickly to that point, Pablo, the nice thing about using Sparrow is that if you can get them comfortable there, they can really pick up any other wallet from that point, right? If you're going from Sparrow to the Bull app, it's going to seem very easy and intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're also hoping later on down the line, there's going to be integrations between hardware wallets and the Bull app as well. So
Good.
Eventually that's going to be like a really super cool feature that we'll have built in. But it's being worked on at the moment. It's a great project. And there's with scaling and like instant payments and everything, there were a lot of like initial design and flaws of other wallets. And we think the Bull wallet's going to be able to handle everything as a daily driver.
Yep.
On chain and liquid.
Awesome.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Electrum? Throw to you, Pablo, first.
Electrum. I think I used Electrum like back in the day, first of all, when I was like goofing around with different types of wallets. I haven't used it a huge amount. It's kind of a little bit clunky, but I like that aesthetic. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't use it too much nowadays. I pretty much just go to Sparrow just because I know there's so many options out there as well, but you do eventually just become comfortable with one. So Electrum, like 2016, I think I was using Electrum back in the day. And as soon as I found Sparrow, I was like, okay, this is great.
Yeah, very much kind of the same boat. Yeah, I'll still poke around with Electrum and Blue Wallet, particularly if I'm trying to find Bitcoin. If somebody maybe has kind of misplaced things or we're trying to do a recovery, I find them a little bit nicer if I'm just searching for maybe a different derivation path or trying to test some things out. But generally speaking, same as Pablo, I just stick with Sparrow for the most part.
Now, in terms of people that want to start learning how to run a node, for me, I'll be honest, maybe the one I use is not the easiest, not the quickest to set up, but I have a dedicated Linux laptop that's running Core on it. I
of course you
built it.
Of course, yeah.
I compiled the Core and everything from scratch. It's the way I recommend people to do it if they have the chops to do it. But in terms of somebody that doesn't have the time or maybe the know-how, but they do want to run a node because they want to be their own bank. What do you guys suggest out for in terms of like hardware solutions and software solutions?
I like Start9. I've just been very comfortable with that. It's been a nice experience. I like the marketplace setup. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is that with Umbrel, I can get into Core and like the command terminal much easier. With Start9, you got to go through an SSH, and it's not bad. But for like hooking up to Sparrow and some of the other applications that you can get on there, like a password manager and stuff too, I think it's a great user-friendly setup. Probably you're thinking the same?
Yeah. I use Start9 as like the old reliable. I don't do a lot with my Start9. I have two nodes. I have like, and both of them are built out of like the Lenovo mini computers.
Yep.
I live in Quebec City. So here in Quebec, there's like it being the provincial capital, there's a lot of like government offices and banks and headquarters and stuff. So these guys, as soon as they renew an IT contract, they just liquidate all of their microcomputers. So there are hundreds of cheap computers in this city. So I picked up like two of them for like $100 each, switched out the hard drives. And I use one, which is Umbrel, just for goofing around with. Umbrel, like I use it for like more Nostra-based things, Lightning-based things. And the Start9, I just use it as like Bitcoin. That's pretty much it. I plug my Blue wallet into it. I plug my Sparrow wallet into it, and I just get my transactions done. So I kind of like having two because when I was first using nodes, there's a lot of experimentation. And at the same time, you want a node just to be reliable. You want to be able to access it from in the house, from out of the house. You just want it to be online as long as possible. But when you're learning about nodes, you want to experiment as well. So I kind of just forked and I was like, I'll have one which is for experimenting on and one which is reliable. So if somebody wants like to respond to your question, something that's not too heavy, not too experimental, I just go Start9, you load it up and it works. It's super easy. You just install like Bitcoin Core and then like Electrum server,
Yeah.
and you just let those two run, and then you plug into your wallets into them. Sometimes we do a little favor, and we help some clients out by, they can, instead of running onto some public servers, they can run onto a Bull Bitcoin server as well. So for our VIP, our friends and family and stuff, we kind of provide that little service there, so they can rely upon us rather than like a full public. But Start9's really good. I really like the core ethos of Start9.
Yeah.
But like Umbrella with all the Docker apps and stuff, like there's loads of like extensions you can get on Umbrella. They've got so many different things. I'm even like experimenting with, I'm a Mac user. Yep. Sorry, not sorry. But they've got like a time machine function as well. So instead of like backing up onto a USB, whatever I do, as soon as I connect to my Wi-Fi at home, all of my Mac devices will back up onto my Bitcoin node.
Nice.
So, if I lose a laptop out of the house, I just get a new one, come back home and sync it up. Stuff like the Vault, Bitcoin Warden Vault, all of that stuff I mess around with in Umbrella. And if it goes down, it goes down, but I don't have to resync my original one. So my only advice would be, like, this is probably my biggest learn, is like, everybody was scaling on the Raspberry Pis, like grab a Raspberry Pi, it's the best way. And then COVID happened, and the supply chain got messed up, and there was a long wait. And honestly, for the same price, you can get one of these microcomputers, these mini computers, and they're a lot more stable. Booting off the SD card all the time, I didn't realize this. Like, I'm not a big computer guy. I worked in finance and education. But booting off the SD card on a Raspberry Pi will eventually corrupt, and then it's not stable. So the most popular option isn't actually the best option. I'd avoid a Raspberry Pi for that type of purpose. They're great for other things, but not for a node.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah. Sorry, Nathan, do you have anything else you want to add to
No,
that?
I just agreeing with everything that Pablo said. Is yeah, you're right. The mini computers are so cheap these days. It's not, if you just want to pick it up as like a fun hobby project, like just go for it. Play around, tinker, get some hardware, and see what you can make happen. And apparently in Quebec, we have tons of cheap stuff because the government's inefficient and wasting it.
There's a market there. Side hustle.
The secondhand market, I'm a big fan. You could go look on like Craigslist or Kijiji or whatever local listings are out there, and you could just look for like even laptops. The one thing about laptops, I will say, they give you an added layer of security. For example, if you're running a computer and the power goes out, unless you're running a UPS, it's just going to shut down. But with a laptop, it has its own built-in UPS of the battery, as long as the battery has some charge in it. An old one probably won't have that much, but it will give you enough that you go there and shut it down, so you're not going to lose everything. So I'm a big fan of the old laptop. They're easy to find, they're easy to get. Like a Lenovo or something. Those things are tried, tested, and true. As long as the battery still has some juice in it, you're okay when there's a power outage. That's just my 2 cents. But your mileage may vary, and everybody might have different opinions on how to approach this. So
that's a great point. Yeah. Plus, you got the screen right there, easy, right?
Yeah, and you shut it off, you close it, and it's still running. It's just very tiny and quiet. So I mean, I'm not, trying to shill these things, but that's just an option for people out there if they want to look for something.
I have a big suggestion as well. I totally forgot about this, but once I built out Node 1 and then Node 2, and then I was like, I'm sure there's an easy way to do this. I just installed Bitcoin Core on this Macintosh right here, and I just pruned it. Like, that's the easiest way to do it. You don't need any extra hardware. Just run a node on your regular computer. Like, work out how much disk space you've got, how much you can run to. They're not going to be able to do everything you need. But it'll at least give you an interface, and like you'll be able to sync it, and you'll be able to verify some transactions. So that's an underestimated node solution, I think, is just striking it up on your regular computer from the get-go.
Yep.
Yeah, and an option, if you do have one node and you want to set up another one, especially the first one's a full node, you can simply just copy over the chain state and the blocks folder. I think those are two if you're running core.
I think that's it, yeah.
You're trusting yourself, so to speak. You're not relying on somebody else to providing it for you, which it may have been corrupted or who knows. If you're the one that synced it from scratch with your own computer, you could trust yourself. So you could actually move that and save yourself a ton of time for doing the IBD because the IBD has been done. So yeah, lots of different options out there. In terms of, I want to talk about like the recent price action in the last, say, year even.
Yeah, fair enough.
In terms of like people coming in and people wanting to onboard in Bitcoin, just new users, it's got to be incrementally, like it's got to be going absolutely nuts compared to the price is going high, but people coming in, it's got to be much higher. So like, do you find that like more and more people are just looking at Bitcoin because it's being talked about and number go up technology? Like, I'll go through to you, Nathan, first. I mean, do you find that a lot of people are just jumping in now more than ever?
Oh, absolutely. That price drives kind of attention for people that aren't already in the space. So I can tell that like since the summer and with the recent price action, we're getting more emails and calls and inquiries and all this fun stuff as well too. It's interesting though, because I almost have like a weird segment of the population because I almost feel like price is driving urgency. But a lot of the people, at least that I'm already talking to, and again, it's going to be kind of selection bias there. They already knew that they want to be in Bitcoin. They were already very much so like kind of freedom and self-sovereign oriented. And the price was just pushing them to actually take that first step. So definitely seeing more attention, but still less than I would have anticipated, particularly now that we've broken through 100K US. I almost expected when we got past 100K CAD that we were going to see more coming through, and it wasn't. Still relatively quiet. And even now, like I'm just looking at time chain calendar here, and priority is 9 sats per VByte. Like it still feels like activity is not full on bull market despite the price action. And maybe that's because tons already moved off chain into like Liquid and Lightning and other things as well, or people just leaving it on the exchange. But while it has increased, it still feels relatively quiet to me. Pablo, your thoughts?
Yeah, it seems like I think there was like a period in like around about October time where it's like, okay, here come the DMs from the aunties and uncles, and that didn't happen. And then like when we hit like 100K USD, I put up like Bull Bitcoin launched the like I was right emails and that kind of campaign. So I posted that up just to flex. I hardly ever post something on like Facebook, which is like very much a normie platform, but I was like, let's do it, let's lap over everybody that I was right. So I did that for a little bit. I got like 4 or 5 DMs, and it's curious, man. There's still it's almost like easier to orange pill people outside of the run-ups because there's the urgency there that kind of like makes people jump a few extra cognitive steps into being like they just want to be in the game. And I suppose that's kind of good for adoption. I mean, that's why a lot of people did get into Bitcoin, even if now down the road, like the three of us will say, well, it's not just price action, it's freedom tech, it's it's sound money, and those are things we learn after the fact. We liked the number go up. So I do think it's a good thing that it's bringing more eyeballs to it. I just think it's different every time around, the best is yet to come out of this bull run. And I think it's going to be around January time. There's a lot of eyeballs, like the mainstream news is definitely moving around Bitcoin. It's, there's that blood in the water and the sharks are kind of circling, and who's going to be the first one to jump in? We had Microsoft, not good, no bueno, but Amazon coming up soon, and like Vancouver City, and like everyone's talking about strategic reserve. So there's like all of this kind of cyclone of activity around Bitcoin, but actually on chain and actually like the frenzy isn't yet ongoing. So it's an odd time. It's definitely an odd time, but it's always nice to get those few aunties and uncles reaching out, especially around Christmas time. If anybody's watching this, like Christmas is always a great time for little pumps in price, because at the end of the day, we don't really give a fuck what Amazon or Microsoft are going to do. It's a people's network. It's us. So I can't wait for people to go home, back to see their friends and families and have these conversations. Personally, I'm looking forward to sitting down at the table and grabbing a beer and going through like, hey, so what's Bitcoin to you? And I'll explain and how it changed my life. And like, that's where it's really going to be at. And I think we need to sit down and have time with people, because it all moves too fast. Otherwise, the news cycle is way too fast, right? You'll hear one big news about Bitcoin today, and then tomorrow we're on to something else. And then it's just like the attention span of people isn't really there to be able to capture what's going on. What people need is the sit down. What people need is the long stretch. What people need is the hand holding. And the news cycle isn't going to do any of that. And the price isn't going to do any of that. Like adoption actually looks like people reaching out, connecting and helping each other. And that's kind of where I put my hat on as an evangelist, right? That's why I still keep that word very core to what I do. I think that's actually going to drive adoption, and price will follow, rather than price first, adoption will follow after. I'd like to see adoption being put first, but like I said, that's not what got me into Bitcoin. Obviously the price did.
I'm actually kind of curious, Pablo. I've been toying around with an idea today that I've been thinking about, like, okay, who's coming in next? And I almost wonder if at least the initial leg of newcomers are going to be people that didn't have somebody that had Bitcoin in their life. So they're very far removed at this point in time. And they might not even be aware of all the things that are necessarily happening, but they might be the kind of, libertarian or even just, sound money camp that would be open to these ideas. Because I wonder, and it's unfortunate human nature of all the people that have a direct line to Bitcoin. If it was suggested like, hey, maybe you should get into this, if ego and identity might actually push them back for a little bit. So thinking, would somebody be a little bit kind of bothered or resentful if they had Pablo telling them back at, 40K to buy some, and now it's run up? I wonder if it might even be harder for them to make that first step, that kind of admission, that humility, versus somebody that didn't have somebody telling them to buy it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, maybe, because it's easy for us to say, like, to come back to the post I made, I was right.
Yeah,
that's easy for me to say. But for someone else to say you were right,
you were right. Yeah, that's hard.
Maybe going to take a little bit. Like, for example, I nearly did this, but a mix of like having too much other important stuff to do and laziness was like you talk to a lot of Bitcoiners, and in fact, like immediate friends and family like aren't orange pilled yet. It's quite like it's like a Bitcoin confession. It's like and it's true for myself as well. Like I talk Bitcoin all day. I work in Bitcoin. I help people adopt Bitcoin. But back home, when I go back home for Christmas, I'm still going to be like, you really should consider buying some Bitcoin. Like,
please read a book.
And my pop was like, he was like looking at it like, when was it? Around about January time. They just like starting a new year. They were looking ahead, and they're retired, but they were just looking at how they could properly save money. And they were like, hey, how does this Bitcoin thing work? So, we went around the block, and I explained a little bit about it, but then they got scared with like the tax thing and like the fees and so they backed out. But it was like, they just wanted to put like $1,000 on Bitcoin. And ever since that moment, like psychologically, I bookmarked that time on the time chain calendar. And I was like, okay, what was the price back then? And I just wanted to set up a bot that would remind my pop every single day, like, here's what you could have had, like, because it was a wild time. So I think you have to be humble with that as well. I'm not wanting people to say you were right. I don't need any type of like redemption or like, we've been through a lot of shit, but that's okay. I am where I am now, and I'm not expecting like any like praise or any like apologies. Like it's all good, man. Like we're still at the same block height all together, you know what I mean? That doesn't change. And there are two great times to get into Bitcoin. It's the first time you heard about it or today. So I'm just trying to make myself available and there. I suppose that I was right was maybe like one lap that I'll have to kind of take back over the dinner table. But yeah, I'm not sure. There is kind of like a backing down of like, okay, so maybe these other crazy, weird people on the internet on podcasts in their basements, maybe they are right, and that might take a little step down off the ego train. But Bitcoin's a humbling experience in general.
Yes,
so is it necessary? Probably. Yeah, probably.
Completely great. Quick story, and then I promise I'll stop hogging the mic, Len.
No, it's all yours, guys. If you want to keep going, I have no problems.
Just on that same point, I had one buddy, and this is, that friend that is just the most amazing, most reliable friend. He's been helping me with some stuff around the house. He helped me out in a family emergency. He's been like the longest buddy. He was my guitar player for years. Love him to pieces. And we were talking about Bitcoin a little while back. He made the comment to me. He's like, man, I bet a lot of people are so happy that they listened to you. Because he did years ago, right? And I had to look at him and go, you're the only one. It was you and mom. That was it. Dad doesn't even know that mom has some, right? So if he ever watches this, he'll, surprise, you've got Bitcoin. But that was it. Right. It's like, I tried, buddy. You were the only one that took me seriously and listened to me. And things are going pretty well for you today.
It's quite a leap of faith to actually do it, to invest money in some. Imagine you just don't take a step back to when you didn't understand what Bitcoin is. And if you're going to put any money in a technology, it's really just software, right? And if it's hard to comprehend the fact that it's scarce, it can't be copied, it's your keys. So if you don't understand that, putting money in that, it's a hard leap of faith to do. Like you could trust somebody up to a point, but then it's like, what am I really buying here? But
I'm not sure in terms of like technological like adoption. We've just seen so much. Like I think like it wasn't that long ago that I first ever took an Uber, right? Was it a leap of faith? Yeah, somewhat. Was it something that now is just like you blink an eye and it's done? Yeah, Bitcoin's kind of the same, right? We take so many like little steps towards mastering new technology without realizing it. But the problem is we're always like users of a platform. We're behind some corporate.com that's kind of encouraging us and egging us on and marketing to us and giving us like loyalty bonuses and nagging us through notifications and stuff. Bitcoin won't do that for you. Bitcoin won't keep knocking at the door. Bitcoin won't have a mailing letter. There'll be Bitcoiners that are trying to help you out, but Bitcoin doesn't really need you. So it's not going to come after you like everything else has become like this new web-based existence that we have.
Yeah.
But for example, the first time I booked an Uber, I was like, what? It's already prepaid. I don't have to pay I don't have to like hand cash. It's not a taxi. What's going on here? But you do it once and you're like, that was pretty easy. And then you move on and like, you just integrate that into how you work. And Amazon, the first time I bought eBay, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this guy has a good rating. I suppose I'm going to send him some stuff. I'm involved in a transaction. It's coming from Hong Kong. And nowadays, you don't bat an eyelid about it. There are so many examples of how we've done this in the past. I don't understand how Bitcoin is any different. There's obviously some insecurities that people still have with money and how they see money and being publicly open about money. It is a bit taboo. And also there's the FUD that's around there. There was no huge eBay FUD. There was no huge Uber FUD. But there's a huge amount of Bitcoin FUD. So unfortunately, that does kind of cloud the waters a bit. But every single person that I know is capable and able to transact on Bitcoin. Like it's not as big as we think, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. It reminds me, it just reminds me of the days. Like I remember as a kid, teen, I have to go backtrack here, but being told never put credit card information online. Mm-hmm. Like how is that just like completely done away with now?
Yeah. Yeah, you just hand it over willy-nilly and you're like, oh yeah, like I've been frauded, so like, I know what to do. And like, I'll call up the 1-800 number and I'll cry down the phone to them and they'll probably reimburse me because they're insured. Like the risk tolerance goes down as we experiment more and more with it. And like, you just need to like lose a wallet once and use a recovery phrase once and get back into it to be like, okay, I got that. That's like the ultimate, I think. That's the ultimate like fail to recovery to building confidence, is to go through like a wrecked situation. It's like like if you're out training at sea, you have like an all hands in the water kind of situation. Like I remember like learning to canoe and stuff, and my dad used to work on the oil rigs, and they'd always do like these emergency situations of like, okay, you're in a life raft and there's 6 of you, but you all fall in. You've got to go through that process with Bitcoin as well. Be like, okay, so everything shit hit the fan, can you pull yourself back out? The fire drill. Like we always do these types of practices in normal life. You just got to do the same practice with Bitcoin. And once it's been done, you build the confidence that you need to be able to say, like, I can get myself out of whatever happens. I throw coffee over my laptop. It's all good. My house, I have a major fire. Well, I put a seed somewhere else and it's on metal or whatever, you need to just be able to give yourself that peace of mind, because there's no 1-800 number. Bitcoin's not going to give you a hug and hand you the Kleenex. You got to get yourself out of the mess. But once you've done it once, you do it again and again. Like, and I suppose that's part of the mentor program over with Nate. And I suppose that's part of the Bull Bitcoin thing is just slowly bringing people into that habit of testing the fire escape before you need it. As this Quadriga CX was a banger fire.
Einstein was another one in Canada, and Mount Gox. Yeah, there's a bunch of these. Now, I mean, to piggyback off that, then do you think in Canada we've had the ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs, for a number of years? In the United States, just earlier this year, it was approved. Do you think these things are? I'm going to throw it to you first, Pablo. Do you think these are actually a good thing for having Bitcoiners come in and learn about the technology and ultimately become Bitcoiners, or is this a hindrance because people just buy in and they don't have to think about anything? They could just use that and pass off the trust to somebody else. I'm of the camp that you probably be able to convert a very small number, because people that are buying these Bitcoin ETFs are just looking for fiat gains more than anything else. But I don't know. I'm not sure if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, your question was like, will it help people learn about the technology? But the fact is the ETF is stripped of all of the technology. So how are they going to learn about it? The ETF has, like, if it's just a portfolio on your .com investment platform, there's no aspect of Bitcoin's technology in there. Like it removes one of the core principles of Bitcoin, which is that you can custody it and you can hold it. So as an asset class, do you want to invest on the price action of an asset class whilst also not benefiting from its main feature? That's up to you. But personally, like, the experimentation is taken away from you. The node running is taken away. The recovery process of seed phrases is taken away. Like, you're essentially, like, a good analogy is like when kids learn to ride a bike. Right. I grew up in like the 90s learning to ride a bike, and it was like super fashionable to put these stupid stabilizer wheels on bikes. Right. And, you'd like toddle on down the lane, like bouncing from left to right with no idea that you have zero balance and you're totally unaware of the fact that you can't ride a bike. and then they take them off, and then you just like face plant, and you're like, oh, that's your wake up call. And I was like, I like scraped my elbows and knees for like a couple of years. Shout out to my pop for like helping me to learn to ride a bike there. But like eventually technology changed a little bit. And like now I see like my friends and family who have like kids and stuff, and they got you seen these balance bikes?
Yeah, like no pedals. Yeah.
They don't have pedals. Have you seen a kid? Like you can actually you can look at a park nowadays and you can see like 5 or 6 year old kids, and you can see the kids that had the balance bikes, and you can see the kids that had the stabilizer wheels.
Yeah.
There's like a whole different air of confidence around the kids that learned from day one how to balance on the bike, rather than the kids that just got kind of protected and bubble wrapped and then all of a sudden rip off that band-aid, welcome to the real world, And like that is the difference between like holding Bitcoin and investing on an ETF. Like there's holding and investing, even the verbiage is different, right? Yeah. So start from day one. Like, you don't have to like sell your house and YOLO into holding Bitcoin. You don't have to transfer your entire, you can if you like, but you can take those small steps, but in the long run, you'll be one of those kids on the park that's like running rings around the others. So do you want to give yourself that advantage or not? I suppose that's the deeper question.
That's a good analogy. Nathan, any thoughts on the ETF, if it's good or bad for Bitcoin in the long run?
I'll take the other side just a little bit. And I would say that there is the positivity to it, just come from the brand recognition and kind of the making it legitimate in some kind of traditional fiat minds. But I'd be curious to see the numbers on this. I imagine that there is some amount of people that are coming into the ETFs to start with that are then, again, where your money goes, your kind of mind follows, that then have their attention on Bitcoin. And it may be helping us select for some people that would be interested in it, but maybe would have looked at it otherwise, who then make the leap of like, no, I want to take this into my own custody. The analogy that comes to mind is I'm sure there's some amount of people that start by just buying like GLD that eventually realize they want gold as well too. That they figure out, just to Pablo's point, is like you may have price exposure, you've got that number go up, but you got none of the freedom go up. And there is at least a subset of the population who realizes, no, I want the ability to, if need be, I can just port my wealth anywhere in the world, that no one can take it from me. No one can censor me. I can just show up, throw my C-words into a new, hard wallet and go from there.
In terms of GLD, the one aspect they give that other, like say the Bitcoin ETFs don't, I think, and I could be wrong, you guys could correct me, once you reach a certain threshold, you can actually pull out and take physical gold.
I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that you are correct, that you can actually redeem it, which is one of the biggest knocks against the ETFs, is that you cannot redeem in Bitcoin.
Yeah. If they offered that feature, and not to say I would even start recommending it, but at least it would be a step in the right direction, because then people who have a certain amount of coin, or I guess whatever ETF shares that they have, then they could at least get actual Bitcoin out of that. I don't know. It has to happen, right? Like one of these offerings have to provide that. It's got to be a service, and then once one does it, the rest do it. It just follows suit, right? So
exactly, I completely agree. And even it's funny to that point, if you're fortunate enough to have a conversation with someone before they buy the ETF, like a lot of times I'll tell people, like, look, if you're just interested in price exposure, it is an option out there. You don't have to go through the hard work of learning to do it on your own. And again, to Pablo's point, it's not that hard. It's a lot to take in, but if you're willing to sit down, read, or work with somebody, it's totally doable. But it's funny because if they're fortunate enough to have someone outline the trade-offs with the ETF versus custodying yourself, I've never seen somebody not want to take custody of themselves. Like if it's expressly pointed out, I've never seen someone go, oh yeah, no, totally fine with that.
Yeah. There's enough examples why, not just like the Quadrigas of the world, but like just even in traditional finance, there's a lot of different. Yeah. Well, let's transition. Sorry, Pablo, you had any point? Anything?
No, I was just going to say, like we mentioned all of the exchanges in the past that blew up, but we all know, the three of us on this call, it'll be another one, right?
Oh yeah,
for sure.
It's not done yet.
Want that to be you? Like, like there will be more implosions, and with, again, concentration and attention span is so short nowadays. FTX seems like it was an age ago, but it wasn't. I was working customer support for another exchange back then, and I remember having those conversations with people who got wrecked. Like, and it'll happen again. We all know it will. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's why if anybody's listening to this or watching this saying, what about Bull Bitcoin? Bull Bitcoin, as soon as you buy from them, they don't hold it. You have to provide a Bitcoin address in which your purchase is sent to. So it's not like they'll get rugged and you lose your Bitcoin. They're not holding your Bitcoin. So that I would suggest, if you're going to look for an exchange, non-custodial is a very good check mark that you should be looking for.
Yeah,
And
we are extremely fortunate to have Bull Bitcoin in Canada. It makes recommending exchange incredibly easy. And not just Canada now too, right, Pablo? Because now we're in the Eurozone area as well.
That's right. Yeah, Bull Bitcoin, based out of France, is now launching as we speak. So we've managed to penetrate Fortress Europe and recolonizing from the old world to the new world. We're going to take our ship and head back and recolonize Europe with Bitcoin. So yeah, we're slowly rolling that out across France, and it's certainly an exciting time. We've got Costa Rica as well with Bitcoin Jungle.
Nice.
So soon world domination. But just back to your point, thanks guys, make me blush there. But Bull Bitcoin, there's like so many things you don't think of. Like if we got hacked, it would be a bad day at the office, but we wouldn't have to make anyone whole.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Better for you and the customers, right? There's less liability. It's self-custody. There's no liability.
Yeah. And we can mismanage funds, or we could get hacked, or there could be a huge fire or whatever server room, all of those things. Like, why insure yourself against catastrophe when you can just use the custodial properties of Bitcoin to just not have to worry about that? So it gives you real peace of mind. Like I said, before I worked for Bull Bitcoin, I was working for another exchange, which was a custodial exchange. And the amount of stuff behind the scenes that had to be done, that had to be, the fail safes and the level of security clearances. And it pretty much drained all efficiency out of the machine because there was so much defense being played that you couldn't innovate and you couldn't get shit done. And and why do they do that? Because they're removing, again, like I said, one of the main properties of Bitcoin.
Yep.
I'm surprised at entering France because Europe is notorious for very strict regulations. And I think one of them, and I'm going to put you in a spot, I'm not sure if you know this, but MiCA, M-I-C-A.
Yeah, the MiCA regulations, yeah.
MiCA,
so we'll be operating, MiCA. I'm not sure how the French pronounce it, but yeah.
So was it something you had to get? Did you have to get one of these licenses before you were able to operate within the borders of France?
Yeah, we actually partnered up with a company in Bitcoin Lyon that already had some of the regulation. We were trying to get through some of the regulation, and French invented the word bureaucracy. They are the champions of bureaucracy and administration and all of these beautiful fiat words. Well, guess what? They're all French words, more or less. So we were swimming in that swamp. But then we managed to partner up with somebody in Bitcoin Lyon who already had the paperwork required. And through acquisitions, we've managed to get everything we need to operate within France. So very happy about that. Shout out to the team that worked super hard for it. And I'm just really happy for we're maintaining the French connection as well, right? Because a lot of Bull Bitcoin's team are based out of here in Quebec. Francis himself being a Quebecer. So it's super nice to be able to help out the patriots and the French patrie back in France. So it's going to be launched soon.
So MiCA's in 1 year, apparently, of course. So that's the inside scoop. So I can't add anything more to that. Says here, no one has license yet. It does not exist yet. So okay, there we go.
Coming soon. Yeah.
Shout out to Guillaume, who's been working on this as well. This is not my forte, but yeah, Guillaume's been working on it. Guillaume works for the Bull Bitcoin team as well. So
yeah, adopting Bitcoin. Nathan, I want to hear a little bit about this because have you attended?
No, I didn't get to go, and unfortunately, I'm gonna be tied down for a little bit too. Because like Joey, I have another one on the way. So Kid 3 is showing up here in March.
Okay,
so,
is this not your first? Then it sounds like.
Oh
Third,
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm stacking kids and stacking Bitcoin as fast as I can. Right, the two most important things, and realistically, the only thing I really spend my Bitcoin on is the kids and is with my local ranchers as well too. But no, Pablo was down at adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador. And funny enough, I had some previous clients that I had worked with that were able to meet up when he was down there with him as well too. So I heard tons of stories. It sounded like a fantastic event, Pablo. How was it for you?
It was awesome. It was really cool. Adopting Bitcoin was like a really sweet, for what I do in Bitcoin, it was like one of the best events I could have imagined because it is focused very much on, the title gives it away, adopting Bitcoin. But the way it was put on, it wasn't so much about macroeconomy. It wasn't so much about like product launches. It wasn't. I went to Nashville, which was just like a crazy like vibe, and especially with all the politics happening around there. But then adopting was on a total different frequency. It was very much about, okay, what can we do? And there were people from around the world who were doing, circular economies, building out low friction exchanges, working with education and everything possible. It was a super cool event, but also what was really interesting for myself was the Mi Premier Bitcoin, my first Bitcoin. They had an unconference before it as well. I didn't get to make the one in Nashville, but I managed to attend the one in San Salvador. And I really like the format of what they do. They have like a free flowing format where basically people at the start of the meet, there's breakfast. It's not like, okay, everybody runs to the main stage. There's talk after talk after talk. It's like, no, welcome to the event. We'll sit down, we'll have breakfast. So you just pull up a chair with some people, get to know each other. And then they open the ceremony and say, okay, who wants to talk about what? Oh. And then you can pitch whatever you want to talk about. And then they make an itinerary by, okay, who wants to participate in this discussion, that discussion. And it just kind of bursts out into like little bubbles and little sections and discussions, and stuff happens at the event. Like partners meet each other and businesses are made and projects are launched. And that was really, really cool. That was like a totally different style of event that I attended. So the two of them together were really powerful. I had a very good time. I managed to do a talk whilst I was there. I was talking about like my vision of what Bitcoin education looks like. I call it Evangelization 2.0, where I'm just basically trying to leverage my past as a language teacher here in Quebec to be able to teach the language of Bitcoin through interactive workshops and things like that. So that was super well received as well. And just because of the way the events were organized, I managed to strike up 3 or 4 partnerships internationally. Everything's open sourced in education, so we're all going to help each other out. So it super accelerated my projects and other people's projects, and I really adored it. Like, and obviously it's in El Salvador, which I'd never been to. So there was that whole thing as well of like checking out Bukele's vision and visiting the Chinese library and walking through safe streets and using Lightning to buy pupusas and surfing and shit. Like it was awesome. Absolutely dope. Yeah. It was so good. It was so good. So there are adopting Bitcoin events around the world. I think the next one up is Cape Town in January.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Netherlands after that.
Netherlands, yeah, in Amsterdam. So they're a really, really good event. I do recommend it. Very like future focused, very positive, great kind of vision of how we can drive adoption. Yeah.
Nathan, you going to be going to any of these, or your kids are going to be keeping you busy?
No, I'm stuck on the sidelines for a bit, which is totally fine. Got to stay home, take care of the kid. That's the role. Got to do it. I do feel like I'm missing out when I can't go to these things as well too. Like Len, it was so nice to see you at the and meet you for the first time at the Your Life, Your Terms event.
Yes,
like it's, you guys know, like the first time I met the Bull Crew was at the Bitcoin Rodeo. And the energy you get when you're around other Bitcoiners, there's nothing like it, right? It's like guard down, best of friends, good to go. Just completely values aligned. And so I did make the promise to the wife that I would not do any traveling, at least immediately next year. I'm hoping I can bump up the time frame a little bit, but no, I'll be just at base camp for the next little while here, taking care of baby number 3.
That's the way to do it. And I just want to touch base on El Salvador, and then I want to hear your thoughts, Nathan, because there was some news that was posted this past week. I'm not sure if you heard about it. Mm-hmm. Financial Times was posting it, that it looks like El Salvador is going to be going to the IMF for a loan. 1.2 billion, I think, was the number being thrown around. And in exchange for that loan, they would have to start, stop their Bitcoin adoption in terms of having businesses accept Bitcoin as legal tender, so you can't pay with stuff with Bitcoin in El Salvador officially. I guess unofficially vendors can still do that. So what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like it's a step back in terms of Bitcoin adoption as a whole.
It is, and it seems very kind of like I'm trying to figure out the angle or think a few steps ahead to try and understand necessarily what they're doing. Realistically, the Bitcoin tender laws were kind of controversial because the force aspect to it that you must receive as well there too. And largely, I do agree. Like I don't think you have to do anything for Bitcoin, but get out of its way. So I don't know the information, but I'd be curious how it's going to be treated in terms of capital gains. Because essentially there's no sort of capital gains tax on Bitcoin, and you're free to exchange it or like barter, whatever how they want to frame it up. That's fine. Bitcoin still wins, right? And even if they throw hurdles in the way, that's fine. Bitcoin still wins. But I'd have to speak to someone who's much more well-versed on these subjects than myself, but I'm curious because I always viewed the IMF as kind of an extension of the US as well too. It is. And yeah, absolutely. And then, so with the US positioning for strategic reserve potentially as well then too, I'm wondering if this is maybe some sort of like selling off the existing Bitcoin holdings of the US government, if this is the outgoing administration just trying to kick some hornet's nest and be a bit of a dick on the way out, or what their ultimate end goal is as well too. So I don't yet understand the motivation unless it is to deter the other. If we're playing like real conspiracy theory as well, I'm not saying this is the case, but it is the thought that crossed my mind, is that if the US is going to adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve with the idea of letting the value of Bitcoin run up so that they can devalue the dollar against it and basically deal with the debt situation to get debt to GDP down, then the last thing they'd want to do is have other countries making that same play. The win for them would be to push other countries onto the dollar, adopt Bitcoin for themselves, and then devalue the crap out of the dollar, right? And leave them holding the bag. And so I'm not saying this is the case, but the thought did cross my mind that, like, hey, maybe they're trying to basically like shitcoin rug the rest of the world, being like, hey, take our stable coin. It's great. Take our USD. And then they're just going to sell it off and roll it into Bitcoin.
That's a 40 chess move.
Right?
Pablo, anything on that?
Yeah, I heard like different rumors at the moment. I suppose like everybody's waiting on 2 points, you know, we just, in terms of the USA, there's like all types of ways they can transition out of the petrodollar into maybe like a stable coin dollar. There's a lot of rumors around that. We'll see. I was trying to find like Eric Trump's talk from BTC MENA. I couldn't find it today, actually. I think it'll be up tomorrow probably, just to see what's going on from the White House point of view. But in terms of El Salvador, it's always very tricky to know like what Bukele's like long-term plan is. Like from being in the country, like there's a certain sense of like, hey, we're good. We're certainly a lot better than what we were, but we'd really like to know what's coming down the road here. There's a lot of uncertainty still in El Salvador as to respects of like what comes after Bukele. How's Bukele going to finish out his term? Is it going to be his brother that steps in? You know, and there's a lot of kind of like inner anxiety about that. You know, they got like 60,000 like violent criminals, some innocent, some guilty, like all locked up. What happens if they just like get released because something gets overturned? What happens if the Bitcoin position is scrapped? You know, I could kind of feel that whilst I was out there looking from the outside into El Salvador. It's the savior country, you know, they're leading the way and like hallelujah. But from being there, there's a lot of people who've gone through a lot. They're happy it's better than what it was, but they don't know where they're going. And I think this type of move, like the Bitcoiners are now starting to scratch their head behind Bukele, being like, yeah, what's the move here? So, you know, I can't even imagine what's going to come down the road there. I guess time will tell. But it's not as simple as, okay, the first ever nation to adopt Bitcoin, it was just, and they lived happily ever after, right? Yeah. We're still waiting on a second country, and until we get one, we're just all looking at El Salvador being like, I hope they run out the race. You know, I hope they manage to do these things. But there's all sorts of ways that people are going to have to save this terrible debt. You're going to either have to dance with the IMF, or you're going to have to transition from backing on gold or backing on stable coins, or remove the petrodollar. I think, who was it saying? Was it Saylor saying the other day, like, the US should short gold and sell all of its gold out and then transition onto Bitcoin and like leave everybody leaving gold and devalue the hell out of gold. And I think there's going to be big moves, but one of the moves I am certain of is like that holding Bitcoin in the medium to long run will be the future-based move, because it sounds money, and they can manipulate the stable coins, and they can print extra, and they can sell gold, and they can go to the IMF for loans, but Bitcoin still sticks to what it's good at, which is, that fixed cap supply. And we can bank on it, and I can verify my transactions, and I can hold my private keys. So it doesn't change my position in terms of Bitcoin, but it certainly makes for interesting news. Like it is 4D chess, like you were saying. The pieces are moving on the board right before our eyes here.
Yeah, and it's at that nation state level now as well too. If not even necessarily adoption, it's 100% in the conversations, right?
Yeah.
And even if the heads of state or the leaders in positions aren't well versed, you know that it's almost like Fight Club. We're everywhere, and there's Bitcoiners just moving into those advisory positions beside them, assistants, other people on the team. That adoption is continuing to grow, and it's with the idea to, like the Sailor's point of going straight to Bitcoin and devaluing gold, like absolutely, because that, like, Russia and China have been buying up gold like mad over the past decade or so, right? And essentially what you're doing is like kind of skipping over installing landline infrastructure and going right to cell towers and just completely rugging them as well too. And so very much so it's Jason Lowry may have had a couple good points. There may be some of this kind of strategic, even defensive planning going on in the background of looking out, going, this isn't, because I'm pretty sure, like, even, was it the Fed or who was it? Like, They even, or the Treasury Department, they even admit that their debt is not sustainable, even not including a recession or any issues too. They all know it's coming. So they, even if it's not Bitcoin, they're doing something to plan for it. I would at least imagine some of them are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
there's like there's like, I don't know, like following through the US elections, you're like, do they want to pull down a recession on the new administration?
Mhm.
Just the way they handled like the election run up, and like they kind of shit the bed with everything that was their election stint. And it was almost, eventually you could feel that Harris lost the backing of a party. Even like a couple of weeks before the actual elections, you could just tell the tone switched. And you're like, why would they kind of sacrifice her, right? It felt like a sacrificial kind of election. And you're like, deep, like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking they just want to pull a recession on the new administration, on Trump. Like, it would, in their long-term strategy of politics, it would maybe make a bit of sense. So I'm not sure how everything's going to play out. I think we get a little bit nervous because the ante has been upped. But this is game theory, essentially, just because, a few while ago, we were talking about block size wars and lightning scaling and like different exchanges going bankrupt and Coinbase being on the stock market and all that type of stuff. It wasn't too long ago, but now like those were the pieces of the previous puzzle. But now we've got like the IMF and like the Chinese buying gold. And like, isn't it a beautiful thing? Like, this is where we're at. And we can just sit back and watch. It's like a sequel of a movie that you've loved, but every time like they manage to write a bigger and better movie.
Yeah.
Like usually the first movie is great, the second movie usually isn't as good, and the third movie sucks. But like these movies are just getting better and better. Like I don't watch TV no more. I just watch this news cycle play out in front of us, being like, holy smokes, we're here. And I know Bitcoin will do its thing. It's TikTok next block. But when you hear these big names and you can feel that there's like tectonic plates moving, it kind of can get you a little bit in the insecurities, but it's all good. Like, I think we deserve to be where we're at. People have worked very hard. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, we three, and it's just nice to be like at the crest of a wave now, just looking up.
And to that point, I think like there's so many landmarks along the way. Is that because of Bitcoin, it's like the right things have our attention. I think we are at like the precipice of something. There's been like, again, Putin talking about basically Putin capitulating to Bitcoin was one. Trump talking about the strategic reserve, and the other one from recent time too was even Trump on Rogan. Like, I thought that was the death nail to the corporate media. Like, you've lost your propaganda arm and you're about to lose control of the money as well too. And for us, it seems like it seems so obvious that these shifts are happening and major things will happen over the next decade that it's actually hard to believe. Like, I started to go like, am I crazy? But then I get to sit down and talk with my fine friends like you guys and go, nope, we're just early and we're probably right.
May you live in interesting times. Now, do you guys have time for a little bit longer? Or because I booked you for an hour, I don't want to.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
So, and just in case I conk out, I'll come back immediately. Just my router just sometimes has some issues. I'm not gone. I'll be back in like 10, 15 seconds. But I guess the next way we live in interesting times thing is Canada today, the Bank of Canada cut interest rates again, 50 basis points. Now, I'm going to go to you first, Pablo, because of your financial background. Maybe you could lead us off.
I know shit about like the stuff. I say I used to work in banking, right? Because it's a flex, but honestly, I was like a call center rat. You know what I mean? I was changing addresses, but I don't know, like between the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, like I've seen like different heads roll and different people move. And I think I just really disconnected from it like during COVID. I think we don't really know what their plans were. I used to watch like the Fed announce rates, and I used to like try and trade rates, and eventually I just totally decoupled from it. I mean, like, what a fucking waste of time and energy to follow this clown show. You know what I mean? I mean, like, what does it actually mean? Does it mean good stuff or bad stuff? Like, if you're in dollars, it probably means bad stuff. If you're in Bitcoin, it means you don't care anymore. Like, it's got to a point of like total apathy with whatever the Bank of Canada is going to try and do to patch this over. And I think like even people who don't hold Bitcoin have kind of got this the monetary policy of what's going on with the what is it, the GST cut, the 250.
So bad.
Like even people who aren't in finance eye rolling at the monetary policy of the central powers. Even people who don't have Bitcoin are working out that it's all just some fake, puppet show. Like, people are insulted. It's got that far. People are really feeling insulted by like the last quarter of this year within the Canadian dollar. And yeah, they've kind of managed to soothe that inflation pain, and they've managed to stop us complaining. We've got used to not complaining about grocery prices now. We just kind of suck it up, and that's how it goes. But it's just ticking away, and it's I don't know. It's like it becomes irrelevant once you. That's the nicest thing about when you start to tap into something else. Like, it becomes less and less relevant. You don't need to. I don't follow these things, to be honest. It makes me sound a little bit ignorant to it, but honestly, I sleep way better. I didn't even know it was going on today. Like, it's not on my calendar. I don't give a fuck. They can go up or down 3 or 4 points. Like, I'm not exposed to anything, because I switch into the hardest money that was ever created from day one as soon as I receive it. So I'm untouchable for whatever they're trying to do. I just feel bad for the Canadian people who haven't yet worked it out, that it's a sinking ship, and they're just trying to patch up holes in a broken economy. And people feel it, but they just don't know exactly where to go. And it's because all of their machine and all of their news cycles and all of their media is telling them to stay on board. It's okay. So there's a huge amount of cope going on at the moment. But I don't know, as soon as you opt out, like, not just financially, but in terms of like where your negative energy and your time is being spent, you can opt out of that as well. So my life is a lot saner, because I was always trying to work it out, but there's nothing to work out. It's broken. That's it, you know?
See, I'm like, I agree with everything that Pablo said, but I'm just fascinated, like watching a giant car wreck go by as they're on the highway. It's like, I can't help but stare at this thing.
But that's the thing. It is like it's like on the highway, you know, like I was driving to Montreal for the meetup last week, and there was like, you know, someone got pulled over by the police at the side of the highway. Like, not even an accident, like no flames, or like no one like no like oil spilling over the road flaming.
Mm-hmm.
It was just simply someone got pulled over for speeding or whatever. But everybody slows
down, right? They all want to know.
Everybody slows down, and like the country's being slowed down by looking at the shit show. Like, look further ahead, look further down the line is kind of like how we can move forward. But until then, like, we can feel it. When I was in El Salvador, I met so many Canadians who were just like, they just reached that threshold of like, I can't do it anymore.
I'm done.
I'm out. And like, I'm really bullish on Canada, right? I really am. Like, I became a Canadian yesterday, by the way. I had my citizenship.
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. This is day 2 of being a Canadian. So like, I'm going to defend my nation, our nation, and say fucking, like, you know, I feel really bad for Canada right now. And I think it's a shame that we should just either complain or leave. Like, that shouldn't be how it goes. You know, there is an alternative way, but we've got to look a little bit further down the road, and we've got to start looking for different lanes that we can take, so we can kind of get this traffic jam moving again. Because it's hard out there, and I can feel people's pain, and I can feel that it's contagious as well. So surround yourself with Bitcoiners and try and help people out there in need, especially over the holiday period. Fuck the Canada Post strikes and all of the fucking free money they're going to give us on a tax rebate. Like, just look a little bit further down the road, because there are good things coming. I'm so bullish on 2025, and I'm still bullish on Canada, no matter what people want to say. So anyway, that's my little, like, I pledged allegiance yesterday, so I'm fresh off of like a
good job,
new wave of patriotism. You know, fuck, let's go.
See, I'll take the flip side of the coin there, where at least in the short term, economically speaking, I'm not at all bullish on Canada. But however, to Pablo's point, I'm very bullish on Canadians. We're a hardy bunch. And absolutely, the more that we can get onto the Bitcoin life raft, I think we'll be just fine, particularly with our energy and resource-rich nature. But to the original thing, like the 50 basis point cut today, I agree that like the central bankers, like you cannot centrally plan anything, and especially the price of money. And so for me, looking at the 50 bips cut today is just an indication of how bad things have already gotten, that the central bankers are taking notice. And it's funny because they will talk out of both sides of their mouth. Like, we're not, you know, they're going to be low for a long time. We're never cutting. And they're just a reactionary organization who I do not believe actually has control at all. I think the longer dated treasuries are completely their own market, and they can only push the short end and do so much. But really, I think it's the psychological impacts that they try to have. But funny enough, right, they'll talk about how it's a long and variable lag. But we're raising interest rates, people. I know it looks like it's doing nothing right now because you don't really control anything, but it's a long and variable lag. And then when they're cut, they're like, it's going to fix things right away. Right? So I look at was it a $1.75 cuts this year, or was it $1.50? Either one. I look at it as the admission to the central bankers that they don't have control over the situation, and it's a lot worse in what they're looking at. So I think that things for the Canadian dollar are going to get worse, that economically speaking, particularly on a per capita basis, like we are going to get hit so hard. But to Pablo's point, you don't have to take it, right? It's just how much pain do you want to stand being in the CAD system? And hopefully it's enough that at some point in time you want to jump, like Frog jumps out and get into Bitcoin. Water's warm. It's great. The people are amazing. Come over here and watch your houses get cheaper every year, right? Come over here and watch your grocery prices go down denominated in Bitcoin. So kind of taking a bit of a, not necessarily a cynical view, but I think there's a lot more Canadians that are going to have a good reason to take a long, hard look at Bitcoin coming up in the future here. And at least that's the silver lining, that, price going up and CAD going down is a good reason to maybe, let's buy a little. Why don't you just set up that mobile hot wallet, set up that mobile Sparrow wallet, head over to Bolt Bitcoin and grab a little.
Agreed, 100%. I got one last question for you guys.
Let's do it.
You first, Nathan.
Okay.
Thoughts on Nostr? Do you use it? Are you a user?
I will confess, I do not use it enough. I have the account set up, and I know I need to spend more time there. I'm well aware I'm a bad Bitcoiner for not playing over there as much.
No, it doesn't make you a bad Bitcoiner.
No. My only excuse is that I do the social media handles for Bitcoin Mentor. And it's like, I just don't want to add another one. I just don't want to have another place that I have to go and cross post. But I'm really quite interested in Nostr, not for necessarily the obvious kind of uses. I'm not sure in the long term, and I'm hopeful of how things will go for Fedi. I'm curious to see what kind of uptake and adoption of that system is, but I really like the ability to have Nostr as a plugin. So in Fedi, they're using Nostr for identification, and they're using Matrix for chat in the background. And I do think it has legs and utility, and I'm not sure if even just like the Twitter style posting and information exchange on that is what's going to end up being the end use of this protocol. But I do think it gives us another tool in the tool belt, something else to stack on top of our decentralized, disintermediated money. Fourth turning's coming, guys, so we can take on the big final boss here in a couple of years and really make something happen. So I think it's incredibly important. I'm not sure that just like the social media app aspect of it is going to be the main use case for it. But I like that it's there, just like all the other privacy tools that we have at just further protect ourselves against the death throes of a dying fiat corrupt system. Pablo?
So the answer is no.
Nice and short.
Yeah, maybe.
Long and short of it is no. I'm Bitcoin confessionals right here as well. I'm a no as well. I don't use Nostra. I set up an account real quick. And I could see its potential. There was like, when I first heard about it, there was like this Nostarica happened really quickly. Yep. And I had some friends who went and came back, and they're all programmers and stuff. So they were just like foaming at the mouth, like, this thing's not my thing. And I was like, okay, it's another platform. So back to your point, Nate, like I already have, like, I just had to close all of my platforms down so I can have this stream. Yeah, because I was like, it puts so much load. I have the WhatsApp, Messenger, Signal, Telegram, Twitter, LinkedIn, like all, and that comes with a job. And I like just going around the block and seeing what's happening on each platform. But I understand that Nostra is something else. Nostra is not a copy of Twitter. It's not a Facebook replacer. It's something totally else. Just like Bitcoin is different as a money. But I'm kind of really good at finding excuses not to do stuff. Right, so check this excuse out, right? This is the reason why I don't do Nostra yet. Okay,
I'm ready.
I went from like platform to platform when Primal came out and Damus and everything, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna port my key from one place to the X, my NSEC key. I was like, yeah, it's just like Bitcoin, super easy. I can port stuff over from one platform to the next, and I was like, that's great. But then I like pumped the brakes, and I was like, but wait, where did I just copy paste my private key to? Everywhere? Like everywhere? Yeah. Did I just trail that thing through 5 different platforms on the clipboard of my Macintosh that's now stored up on the iCloud or some shit? I was like, wait. Most people, and this is my criticism, and I'll feel free to take the hit over this one, but most people, most Bitcoiners using Nostra have absolutely atrocious key control. Yeah. Like, is that not going to be an issue later on down the line? Like, or would you rather not have to think about it? So I was like, I'd rather not have to think about it later on down the line. So I was like, well, how do I do that properly? Fortunately, Cold Card got it worked out, right? I'm not sure if you've used this yet, but
haven't played around with it yet. Yeah,
I know, right? This is where I'm at. This is me being like this really anal Bitcoiner that's like, no, I have to do everything like Linux and open source, and like I have to do self-host everything, like just like really making it complicated so I can just kick the can further down the road. But that's what I did. I was like, I need to have like like you hold your Bitcoin on a cold wallet, I was like, I'd like to be able to hold my Nostra profile in somewhat of a cold setup.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to look into how to do that with things like NSEC Bunker, which is where you can do handshakes between your private key and your public key, or your NPUB, NSEC, without having to just copy paste it and be like, oh, Damus is down, I'm going to throw it into Primal. Oh, Albi wants it, I'll use this. Oh, CoinOS, like I'll throw it in there. And eventually you're going to lose track of where everything went. And you only need to lose it once. If later on down the line, we're building really significant things with Nostra, I think a lot of people are going to have to clean the slate and start again. And then with that, you lose everything that you built. So it's a really great way of saying no.
And to your point, Pablo, I did the same thing too. I just bounced that private key around. I was like, oh, this is so cool, with like no consideration for how I was treating it.
Yeah. So it was one of my projects. I wanted to get my first post away from like Bitcoin Beach whilst I was down in El Salvador, but I was having too much fun with the old margaritas down there, so and surfing in between. But eventually I'll get it set up. I think Christmas is always a good time. Like, no need to buy me any gifts, anybody. Like, you can just like leave me alone with my cold card queue, and I'll be able to work on that thing and work out how it all works. Because I'd love to be able to host my NSEC on my node. Right. And I think that's how we should be looking at it. But it's getting to be a problem that I'm not using Nostra right now. Because when I went to adopting, guess what? A lot of people there adopt Nostra as well. So everybody's like, oh, I'll just ping this there. I'll zap you this. Like, have you seen this? Like, and it's essentially the ultimate plugin network. You can plug in so much stuff to this network, and it's not a social media platform. Is not how I see it. It's essentially like a plugin platform where you can have any type of web-based wallet, or you can have a DJ-based platform that's playing music, or you can have a news-based platform, and they all plug into Nostra. And Nostra allows that kind of like commonality between all of these different platforms. If you're not on it, you can't really access all these platforms. And that's where the Bitcoiners are right now. They're on Stacker News. They're on like Node Runners FM. They're doing all these cool things that are outside of Bitcoin, but it's part of the culture. So if you want to be able to participate in all these new environments, these new kind of like space, I hate that word, spaces that are existing, you've got to be on Nostra, because it is the plugin network. So 2025 is going to happen. You'll see me back there with a very private NSEC key.
Looking forward to following you. Nathan, I got a private question for you.
Sure.
I see it in the background. You have the drum set. You're a budding musician.
I was. There was the pre-married younger man was let's see, a little bit more adventurous, but I originally, it's funny. I went to school because I was 17 university, went to school a little bit early. Everyone's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have no idea. Doctor? Sure. Doctor sounds good. Why not? We'll go for that. Right. But I learned within my first year at university that I didn't really like medicine that much, or nearly as much as playing drums in punk bands. So I in my misspent youth, I spent a lot of time playing in different bands and ska bands. The Monkey over there was a band called Los Kung Fu Monkeys out of Tijuana, Mexico, as well as out of Montreal on Stomp Records. So I played with them for a while, and I loved it. I loved it for years. But it was, I'll say it was around, was it like 27, 28? I remember that you just reached that point where it's like, I'm getting a little too old to keep living this lifestyle. And I had that like vision into the future of like, okay, if I change nothing, where is my life going? And I was like, oh, I don't want that. I want the house. I want the wife. I want to settle down. And so all of it kind of came in at the same time. I pursued a better position in my fiat work, and I met the wife, and I kind of hung up the hat. But now I got on the one side, I actually have the first kit I got when I was a kid from my dad. And then I had my touring kit on the other side. And so now my two kids hang out down here and bang the crap out of it whenever they want to. And I absolutely love it.
So cool. Okay, guys, I think we got here almost an hour and 20 minutes. I appreciate you guys taking the time. So before we go off, I just want to pass the baton to each of you. Just to, you could say where people could find you, some final words, whatever you guys want to talk. I'll give it to you first, Pablo. So like where people could find you if they have any questions or like anything else you just want to last words before we just sign off.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody out there who needs any support getting family or friends set up over the holiday periods, make sure you direct them to bullbitcoin.com. If you need to reach out to me directly, it's pablo@bullbitcoin.com. I'll be happy to be able to shepherd in any new sheep to the flock. Make sure you're offering them that option when the conversations come up. You can also check out bitcoinsupport.com is a website that we had on our own, but now we've partnered up with Bitcoin Mentor. So if you are looking for those custody options, do head over to bitcoinsupport.com and we'll be able to get you either set up with the information you need, or what is probably best is one of the expert mentors over there at Bitcoin Mentor. So, and you can always follow me, soon to be on Nostra, but at the moment on Twitter at Sextron3000.
Nathan, over to you. You let us off. You'll finish us off too.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the BTC Mentor handle. If you want to come and hang out too, we do a Twitter Spaces live Bitcoin Q&A Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And most of the time we have a guest come and join us for some conversation, just some hanging out and chatting as well too. Fortunately enough too, we've got Pablo coming on this Friday to hang out. So come pop in, say hi, join us. We love when people actually get up on stage and get into the conversation. You can find more information about us at bitcoinmentor.io across all the kind of social media platforms. And soon, Nostra, I promise I will get to it. I will make it happen.
Hey, how about we hold each other accountable then, Nate? Like we get it done in January, both of us.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's make a pact right now on live.
Done. Nostra set up no later than the end of January. We make this happen. We use the Christmas break to make this happen.
Nice. Accountability.
That's right.
I'm going to edit this out, by the way, just to...
You're my accountability buddy.
Yeah.
And then additionally, bitcoinmentor.io or bitcoinsupport.com. You can set up a quick free discussion if you want to find out how we can help you, whatever your situation may be, or even just point you to some great resources. You can feel free to email us at info@bitcoinmentor.io, or you can email me personally too at nathan@bitcoinmentor.io.
Gentlemen, appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Len. Love it.
Man. Enjoy the holiday period. Merry Christmas.
Same to you, gents. We'll be back on Monday, so take care.
Merry Christmas, everyone.